Hello everyone, this is Professor Dew. We are going to unpack in this lecture understanding stereotyping. But before I do want to mention, I want to thank you for your patience. I know I've been trying to get these posted soon as possible, but also with as much feedback as possible, so I could attempt to address or redress any issues that you do once I've graded your papers and stuff. So I've been doing a pretty good job about keeping on top of grading what you've given me, but know that I'm trying to get the information from you and then see what I need to include in my lectures to make sure you're getting the quality you need from me. So stereotyping. Let's look at this quick video about understanding stereotyping and our perceptual process.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to Test 2 Plus today. My name's Trace, and this is our episode on stereotypes. Welcome. We're going to talk about how we got stereotypes, why they even exist, and why we got stuck with them, and if there's a way to fix them. But first, what is it about stereotypes that's going on in our brains? What's happening? What are we doing when we stereotype? We stereotype immediately and unconsciously all the time. Let me give you some examples. Asians are good at math, right? Women are bad drivers. Olds don't know how to internet. These are all things that people stereotype about, but are any of these true? Probably not. You probably stereotyped me as soon as this episode started. In a fraction of a second, you thought, oh, I've got gender, race, age, so then you pick the social groups that I belong to, and then categorize me and put me into some box that makes your brain happy. We stereotype or categorize because it's ingrained in us. It's part of being human. Now, stereotyping is generally a bad thing. We don't want to make broad generalizations and assumptions that define individuals. It's not healthy. But what the brain initially intended stereotyping to do was, it was a way to interact more efficiently. You take information, you process it, and simplify it. You generally wouldn't ask an elderly woman to help you change a tire, or ask a kid to take a bum of smoke, because stereotypically speaking, that elderly woman is going to be able to help you change a tire particularly easily, and children probably don't have a pack of smokes on them. You could be wrong, because stereotypes frequently are, but you're probably not wrong. Our brain developed a system to store anything we absorb from society, whether it's true or not true, and put it into a spectrum of similarity. Anything and everything can be viewed or heard, can be read or smelled or tasted. That's all interpreted by our brain and added to this file we can then pull from later. It's processed in this way. Let's walk through the brain a little bit. The temporal lobe processes sensory input into meaning, and then works with the anterior temporal lobe, which stores knowledge about people and social groups. And then the dorsal medial prefrontal cortex, which supports the formation of impressions, because that's what cortex does, it's context, which is then used by the inferior frontal gyrus to decide whether a situation is safe or not. With all these different parts of our brain, we create patterns and then make predictions that make us more comfortable being out in the world. Stereotyping is a byproduct of this simplification system. The shortcuts that we use, we call stereotyping, because brains are lazy. Rather than pull all of the information from each individual person we meet, we say, oh, well, they got that shirt from this store, they're probably this kind of person. They like that kind of music, so they probably also like these other things. Rather than asking every single person the same thing, everybody who likes some band, like, I don't know, Very Naked Ladies, probably also likes other bands related to them. Rather than ask every person, it's easier to just use shortcuts. Now, our brain actually does this not only with people, but it does it with other things too. Stereotyping or categorizing objects around us is essential so that we understand those objects. Let me give you a non-person example. When you look at a fork, your brain uses all its previous knowledge about every fork that you've ever seen or handled, and then builds a stereotype about forks. You can tell what the fork is made of, how it feels, and what its purpose is, and sometimes you can do all of that without ever touching it, because your brain has those shortcuts built in. This saves you energy and time, saves your brain processing power, and you don't have to learn what a fork is every time you want to eat dinner. Unfortunately, the brain doesn't take into consideration that utensils and people are different things. People have feelings, and utensils usually don't. Categorizing people can hurt feelings, and it can also be dangerous and unhealthy and downright dickish. If you think you're not stereotyping, chances are you're lying to yourself. Everybody stereotypes, even the most conscious and mindful person. Psychologist Wim Denies of Leuven University conducted a study. There is 1,000 people in a room, and you were told 995 of them are lawyers, and 5 of them are engineers. So if we pick a person at random, and talk to that person, and that person says, hey, I have little interest in social issues or politics, but they really like mathematical problems, would you decide that that is a lawyer or an engineer? Despite the dominating statistics, people are going to rely on their stereotypes, and will probably guess that this is an engineer and not a lawyer. But what if you said, just for a second, like, wait a minute, brain, there's a 99.5% chance that this person is actually a lawyer, they just like math. So say lawyer. So Wim and I's study says that even though, rationally speaking, this is a room of almost all lawyers, your stereotyping detector is going off so strongly that you're like, that's gotta be an engineer. I just hit one of the 5 of them in this room with 1,000 people. That's how strong stereotyping can be. It seems to me that there's actually no way of escaping stereotypes. When I was a kid, I looked at my dad, and we started talking about this when I first started to realize that stereotyping was a thing. I saw something on the news, and we started talking about it, and I realized that humans stereotype so strongly that if we were blind, we would probably say that you sound funny. Where are you from? You sound funny. What's different about you? You start to stereotype just not based on how people look. And if you were blind and you were deaf, then you would stereotype based on how people smell. And if you were blind and deaf and couldn't smell anything, maybe it would be you feel funny. Humans stereotype at such a base level that it's very difficult to get rid of, and it plays such an important part in the way that we gather information. It doesn't mean that it's a good way to do it, it just means that it's part of being human. If stereotypes play such a prevalent part of our daily life, we might have some basis in truth. Maybe. Like a little bit of truth that's consistently and systematically absorbed since the beginning of your existence, but the truth that you at least experienced at one point in your life that then created a stereotype. It's kind of like being in a losing game of tug of war. Do you have any stereotypes that you've discovered as you got older? Why don't you tell us down in the comments? And make sure you come back to Test 2 Plus tomorrow for episode 2 of Live on Stereotypes on whether or not stereotypes are supported by the media or if they come from us. Also, check out last week's episode,
I don't think you need any more of that. So again, great information about stereotypes. Loved that video. And so when we look at stereotypes, we're going to be doing an activity. So in this activity, you need to understand what is an agent identity and what is a target identity. So for the purposes of the class, we are going to be calling agent identities anybody that is a favored group in the United States. So we're going to look at United States specifically, kind of like a little bit wider. It's actually more Western culture, but I think you can make an argument that this happens a lot of places. So agent identity, the unfairly favored group. So if you think about the unfairly favored group with gender, it's going to be male, right? And everybody that is not male would be what's considered a target identity. So let's look at another one, right? So with ability, anybody that is considered temporarily able, doesn't have any physical ability issues, doesn't have any mental ability issues, doesn't have any mental health ability issues, doesn't have any learning ability issues. That's the agent group, right? The world is built for and is supposed to work for that group. If you are disabled in any of those ways, physically disabled, mentally disabled, mental health, you suffer from mental health issues, or you suffer from learning disabilities, then you are in that target group. You are in that group that tends to have worse stereotypes about you. So in the agent group, I've got with race and identity, the agent group is white. With target, it's any other race. With gender, it's male. The target group is any other gender. The agent group for ability is temporarily able. The target group is anybody that is not able. For sexual orientation, the agent group is heterosexual. The target group is any other orientation. The agent group, again, in Western culture is Christian, and any other religion or not having a religion at all would be a member of a target group. For nationality, U.S. American citizen would be the agent group. The target group would be anybody that's from another country or has dual citizenship. First language is, if you have English as a first language, you're in the agent group. If you speak any other language first before you spoke English, you'd be in the target group. Citizenship status, if you're a U.S. citizen, you are an agent. If you are a non-U.S. citizen in America, you are a part of the target group. And then with socioeconomic class, if you are upper class, you are the agent group. If you are middle or lower class, basically anything but rich, then you are in the target group, right? So when we do the activity we're going to be doing later, we're going to be looking at anything that you are that's in the target group. If you are, and again, so it would be like like I'm Native American, so I would be in the target group for race. I'm male, so I'm in the agent group for gender. I have learning disability, so I'm in the target group for ability. For heterosexual, for sexual orientation, I'm in the agent area because I'm heterosexual. For religion, I'm Christian, but I'm also Christian and Buddhist, and I practice some of my native religions. So it's kind of a weird mix of things there. So maybe I would avoid that topic because it's unclear where I really fall. Nationality, I'm U.S. American first and foremost. So I'm in the agent group. I am in the agent group with first language because I spoke English first. I am in the agent group with citizenship status because I was U.S. citizen. And I am middle class, so I'm in the target group there, right? So again, when we're going to be doing our stereotype activity, I want you to pick a target identity, not an agent identity, just because it's going to work better for what I need you to do for the activity. So again, you're going to be listing your social identities. Consider, are you in the agent category or are you in the target category? And then when we do the stereotyping activity, I want you to pick a target identity, one that is disfavored in Western society. It could be race, so like Latinx, Black, African American. If it's gender, then it would be female, transgender, intersex. If it's religion, then Buddhist, Muslim, atheist, agnostic, spiritual. Class, it would be anything but rich, right? But I want you to pick an identity that is salient. Remember, salient, something that you're aware of, something that you have a close affinity or connection to. And I want you to explore the stereotypes that you've heard over time, because that is the social identity you're going to be doing for the activity that's related to this. So with stereotypes, stereotypes are commonly held generalizations about characteristics and values of a social group and its members. So they're typically pejorative, so they are, for the most part, negative when we look at stereotypes, but stereotypes can be positive. They are based on incomplete information, they are very resistant to change, and they also deny the complexity and diversity of a target group. So, for example, like an example of a positive stereotype would be like Asians are good at math, right? What becomes problematic with the positive stereotype of Asians are good at math is, what if you're Asian and you're not good at math? Or what if you're Asian and you are good at math, but all anybody ever values you for is because you're good at math, right? It becomes complicated because we deny the complexity of an individual. Also, I've always adopted pit bulls. So think about what are pit bull stereotypes that you've heard over time, right? Vicious, aggressive, mean, like probably a lot of like bad things, right? But if I told you about Tank, or Tank jumped into the video and you were like, oh, Tank looks really sweet. Tank's my pit bull. And you were like, well, I want to meet Tank. And you met Tank and it was a positive interaction. Then you could probably be like, well, he's one of the good pit bulls, but the rest of the pit bulls are bad, right? So you see how stereotypes are based on incomplete information and are also very resistant to change. So we want to be aware of that as we come to understand what stereotypes are and how stereotypes work. Stereotypes also tend to focus on marginalization. Marginalization is the loss of one's cultural identity and not having a deep sense of psychological contact with society based on your identities. So again, I'm going to play this video based on marginalization really quick for you, and then we will continue on with the lecture. Actually, I'm going to stop that because I'm realizing most of that video is text. So please go to the slides for understanding stereotyping to read that text. But in examples of marginalization is when the U.S. government forced Native Americans to live apart from their members of their other nations. Again, this is individuals or groups that express little interest in maintaining cultural ties with the dominant culture or their migrant culture. Another example of how this works is individuals who live on the margins of a culture are not able to participate fully in its political or social life as a result of cultural differences. So again, you think about Native American folks and the experience of living on a reservation, especially in like northeastern Arizona. Like, are you really having a typical American experience living on a reservation out there? So coming to understand that a little bit more and how in-groups and out-groups work gives us a better sense of like how folks of certain identities are held back or excluded from American society. Now, in the next activity, you are going to be writing a list of stereotypes with the activity that's called Words I Never Want to Hear. So what I want you to do is complete the following phrase. Things I never want people to say, think, or do to or about blank group again, right? So filling that in, right? Things I never want people to say, think, or do to Native Americans again, or think about Native Americans, or do to Native Americans again, right? So when we think about that, it's we want to examine things I would never want people to say, think, or do to this group that you belong to again. And then you have to write 15 of those, I believe. And I give you an example of what it looks like for Native American stereotypes there. So when you're done, I want you to reflect on that. What does that experience look like? How did it feel, right? This cartoon does a really great job of breaking this idea down for us a little bit. Wow, you suck at math, when it's a guy and another guy. And then with a girl, it's wow, girls suck at math, right? It's hard to have like all these negative pejorative things associated with your identity, when other people like don't have to worry about or deal with some of that stuff as much. So I'm going to give you a warning before you start this activity. As a warning, I am going to add, you might want to realize that you're going to probably have to use slurs as part of this. And you're probably going to have to use potentially swear words, right? So it's hard if you're going to be examining stereotypes that are associated with women without using swear words, right? Like women are called the B word a lot, or they're called C words sometimes, right? Now, when you write that out, don't write B or C word. Write out the actual word you don't want people to say, think, or do to you again, because we need to be able to read those words to understand the impact of those words. Additionally, if you're part of Black, right, you might have to write down, again, harmful words. But for the activity, I would like you to write out the actual word itself that you don't want to be called, right? Because you don't want to not be called the N word. There's another word I'm sure you're not wanting to be called specifically. So I want you to be aware that we're going to be looking at those things in that way. So with that, go ahead and get started on this activity. Just post those and then make sure that you're looking at my rubric for the things that I need to see from you. And this is a really wonderful opportunity for you all to teach each other about what has the impact of stereotype in your life done or meant to you. And with that, that's all I have for you today. I hope you have a wonderful day. Peace and blessings to you. And I will get started on recording the lecture for responding to stereotypes as soon as possible. Have a great day.